This is the plaintiff, Joshua Efron. He says he brought his car to the defendant's shop for a full detail, and the guy ripped his seat somehow. When he complained, he told him the rip was already there. It wasn't. He's now suing this guy for the $1,282.82 he's most certainly owed. This is the defendant, Gregory Paul. He says this guy called to complain about a tear in his seat after he left his car wash, claiming one of his guys ripped it. The guy wouldn't come back with the car so we could see the damage. It's clear as day. The damage was already there, and he's not about to be scammed by the likes of the plaintiff and refuses to pay for something he did not do. He's accused of tearing into a customer.
All parties, please raise your right hand. People's Court is now in session. The Honorable Judge Marilyn Leon's presiding. Litigants have been sworn, Your Honor.
Thank you, Douglas.
You're welcome.
Okay, Mr. Efron, you are suing Fashion Square Car Wash, represented here by Mr. Paul. You're the manager, correct?
Correct.
For $1,282 in damages you say they did to your car. Tell me what happened.
Okay, August 30th, 2020, Your Honor, I brought my car in for detailing.
And what kind of car is this?
It's a Subaru Crosstrek, 2014 Subaru Crosstrek.
Okay.
It was there roughly 2 hours, and then I got the call. The car was ready, so I went over, got it, and there was the plastic on the seat that the workers use, to not dirty up the seats. But because the seats were wet, I just left the plastic on and drove off with the plastic on. It took me about, I want to say maybe 15 minutes to get to my next destination. And at that time, my plan was I'd crack the windows open a little bit, pull off the plastic, and then let the seats dry. And that's when I pulled off the plastic and saw the rip in the seat. So I immediately phoned up the car wash and explained that there was a rip in the seat. I spoke to a man named Luis, and he said, okay, I'll look into it and get back to you in about an hour. An hour passes, I don't hear back, so I phone him back. And then he said, oh, that rip was already there, and we have camera footage of it. I said, you have camera footage of it? Really? I'd love to see this footage. And to this day, I have not seen that footage. I also said, if you saw a rip in the seat, wouldn't you have pointed that out before you put wet shampoo on a seat with a hole in it? Didn't make any sense to me. And he said, okay, not a problem. I'll have the boss get back to you, Greg. And I said, okay, great. So I wait, and I did not hear back from anybody. So ultimately, I got an estimate how much it would cost.
Ultimately, like 6 months later, what took you so long to get? So it was August 30th when this happened, and it isn't until late February that you do something. What happened?
Sorry, Your Honor, it was November I got the estimate. So I understand it was still a few months. I was basically just waiting to hear back from them. And
wait, you sat by the phone for 6 months? Like at some point you didn't call back? You're an attorney, right?
I'm an immigration.
You're more aggressive on your cases than you are with your own case, right? I hope, because so you never, when he doesn't call you, did you ever call again or no?
No. At that point,
So what happens instead is you file a written complaint through their website or something, right?
Yes. So I get the estimate in November, and then in February, I send the
November, December, January, February. 3 months later, you send him. All right. When you received his complaint, all right, is that sent privately, Mr. Paul, to your business, or does that go to a parent company? How is it you received that complaint?
You could call me Greg, Your Honor. I received the email directly from our website, goes direct to my personal email. And then I got the email in February, and I responded the next day.
Did you have a guy named Luis working for you?
Luis is one of my managers, very good guy.
And does he remember, because now I assume everything's hit the fan once you ended up at People's Court. Did you ever sit down with Luis and say, hey, did this guy, what happened with this guy? And does Luis say, yeah, I gave you the message. Why didn't you call him back? Like, what is the conversation between you and Luis?
Well, I only got the email 6 months later. And then, of course, I talked to Luis about it.
And Luis doesn't remember?
Doesn't remember. I have vague recollection of possibly getting a message, but he said that he called the customer back and explained the situation, and then we left it at that.
Mr. Efron says that he was told by Luis we have footage that proves that you came in here with that rip in your car.
We have camera footages. The whole car is caught on, camera footage the whole time it's on the car wash property. I never saw any car wash footage. It gets erased after, 2 weeks, maybe a month for some footage.
According to Mr. Efron, not only does Luis say we have camera footage, but Mr. Efron says, send me the footage. I'm dying to see it. And I do know.
And I believe
you say you don't hear about it until February, but Luis didn't save the footage that Mr. Efron asked to see, right?
I believe I talked to Luis about it. He doesn't remember it, but I told him the situation, and he said if that was a situation, I would have told the customer to return immediately.
Yeah, that is kind of curious, Mr. Efron. My first move would be when Greg doesn't return my call to psycho call him, because that's how I operate. But anyway, so why didn't you take the car back to the car wash?
All honesty, I just got a little bit busy, and I figured, okay, he'll phone me back. He doesn't want to have a bad customer. And in fact, his email response does show that he wants to try to make things right.
Totally.
Want to keep a good customer.
So let's get to the email response
figured,
by Mr. Paul. Mr. Paul sends an email back saying, I don't think we did it, but just in case, please I can refer you to a repair place, and I will give you free car washes to make up for whatever you have to pay for the repair. Now, if I'm you, and I'm saying, I let this thing go for 6 months, I never brought the car to them, I left the premises without checking it. I may have a proof problem. I don't know. That sounds pretty reasonable. But not you. You didn't think that was reasonable, Mr. Efron. You wanted him to pay you the $592.83, despite the fact that you took it with you and noticed it later.
Yeah, but 15 minutes later, more precisely. But yes, I didn't want to take the plastic off right away because I didn't want to sit on a wet seat. I was not expecting there to be a rip in the seat.
Now, here's the thing, Mr. Paul, you're right that, it becomes very difficult once. That's when a valet returns my car, and of course, this is because I've spent the last 30 years doing this, but I literally try to look inconspicuously when I walk all around my car. Like I'll start at the passenger door and then I'll walk around, like I'm looking at this side, and then I walk around and then I peek towards the front and then I come back to see if there's any damage. Because I know that the minute I drive off, it's going to be really, really hard for me to pin it on them. And they did it. I didn't do it. I may know that in my soul, but proving it to somebody is going to be hard. Now, it's a little different with Mr. Efron, and I'm going to tell you why. Number one, I have the phone records that show that he called your establishment several times that afternoon after picking it up. Number two, he took a video. It was really good that day. Then something shiny passed in front of his eyes and he forgot about it for another several months, and then several months after that. Let's look at the video.
Today is Sunday, August 30th, 2020. I just got my car from the Fashion Square car wash just maybe 2 hours ago. Right now, there are a couple of issues all on the driver's side. Number one, this airbag light is on. In addition, there's this rip in the seat right here.
Wow, that got a lot bigger later.
In addition, there's an issue with the driver's window.
Did you open it up a little for court so it would look worse? Why does it look so much worse now than it did on the day?
Your Honor, I submitted a picture. I submitted 3 pictures. One was taken the day of, and then I also submitted pictures taken a couple days ago in case court wanted to see how it looks now. And so over a year, the rip has gotten a little bit bigger.
What about your issue with the driver's window and your issue with the airbag? What happened with that?
Those went away, so those weren't part of my suit. I assume there was something to do with water in there that evaporated, and then those weren't there.
And if the cost of the repair of the seat is $592.83, why are you suing for $1,282.82?
I was also suing for the cost of the detailing. I submitted a receipt for that.
But you did get the detailing. The idea behind court is to make you whole, not to put you ahead of the game. You got the detailing, you received it, so why would you get your money back for that? What you would get, if you're able to prove that they did it, is the cost of the repair of the chair. That's what you would get. And then you're also suing for lost wages?
Yes, lost wages. I figured I would do it a low $250 an hour and just cap it at 2 hours. I spent more time than that preparing this, but I thought that would get a little ridiculous.
Did you spend a lot of the last year and a half preparing it before you brought it to me?
No, it was more several hours. It was definitely was not a year and a half or anything approaching that.
All right. So, Mr. Paul, let's get back to you. You know, I understand that when people leave, they've got to do like I do and neurotically walk around the car. But when it's inside the car, isn't that a little bit different? Especially in a case where I have him calling you guys, I see the phone records, and I have him videoing it on that day.
It doesn't 100%
What do you think
prove
happened?
one way or
What
the
do
other.
you think happened here? What do you think happened? Do you think that he's making it up and trying to pin it on you?
No.
Right.
Absolutely
Neither do I.
not. Absolutely not.
And also
I
the
don't think so.
I don't either. And that's where the problem lies. If we don't believe he's lying, then you guys would owe him for the chair. I don't think you owe him for lost wages, and you don't owe him for the detail. You gave him the detail. And wouldn't you owe him for the chair then?
Absolutely not. We didn't damage the chair. And then also he
Look,
would have told
let me
him
tell
to
you
go
something.
to
This
the
is not
email
like a
address
little
on the
thing we're
website.
talking about. It's a big rip in the chair. And let's discuss something. This is a picture on the day. This is a video on the day. Let's get it to that point.
There's this rip in the seat right here.
And then throughout time, it has become worse, I take it. It's gotten more open or something?
Yes, Your Honor. And some of the inside foam has come out, and you can see some of it's down to the metal now.
Yeah.
Mr. Paul.
There's no way that a detail did that at all. It's
Okay,
impossible.
talk to me.
That's
Explain to
from-
me.
Immediately, you know 100% that is not from shampoo or brushing it or anything like that. It might have started off at the beginning of the detail smaller, and it could have gotten bigger, but there's no way it
How would
started
it have
at the
gotten
detail.
bigger?
Maybe putting pressure on it, maybe sitting on it will, as you see, it's still opening up. It probably started off smaller. It opened up during the detail a little bit, maybe, and now it's even bigger, and it's going to get bigger and bigger until it's fixed.
Well, that's great, but that's a lot of supposition. I mean, I'd like to hear from the guy who detailed it or from the person who talked to the client, because unless we think he's a liar and there was no hole.
No.
Right. So
Well,
I'll tell you, I can tell you a
bigger.
couple of ways that I think this could happen. Somebody could have a belt buckle and it could have ripped it because it's a fabric seat. It's not leather. And nope. Somebody
These are
could have a
very
tool
strong.
on them. Somebody could have a cleaning tool that they're using and it brushes against it. Why no?
No.
Why no? How did it
Why
happen
no?
then? It
Because
happened
these
somehow.
tools-
How did it happen then?
I did some research on the plaintiff's car, a 2014 Crosstrek. Okay, if you go and Google his particular car and the words car seat, problems, complaints, anything like that, and you'll get a lot of pictures and a lot of complaints, a lot of forums discussing this very problem with pictures that look very similar to the plaintiff's.
So you tell me that if I look up, this is a known problem, just this particular rip?
Yes, and because I did some research coming into court, I like to come in prepared. I found this Subaru. This is a Subaru service bulletin for for many cars, but one of them is a 2014 Crosstrek, and it says the front seat back upholstery hooks. There's a design change, and it says if it's not repaired with continued use, the seat back frame may break down from foam padding covering it. Eventually, the frame will likely wear through and damage the trim cover.
When a hook fails, the center flat portion of the seat back drops inward from lack of support, and if not repaired, the seat back frame may break down the foam padding covering it.
It also explains this is a service bulletin directly for Subaru dealers and their repair people, and it explains how you're supposed to fix the problem, and it also explains how the warranty will take care of it.
What say you to that, Mr. Efron?
If it's going to break through, Your Honor, I would imagine that would be a more gradual process. It wouldn't happen that I bring the car in for detailing.
maybe when someone's detailing it the way they're supposed to detail it, which is with shampoo and a little bit of elbow grease, that causes it to be visible now to you, but the degradation was in there and not that person's fault. You have to prove in this court that it's something they did wrong, like either they accidentally ripped it, or they unpurposely ripped it, or they conducted their business in such a way that ends up ripping it. Now, all of a sudden, he shows me something that is literally a service bulletin for your 2014 Subaru Crosstrek that specifically says that it may be covered because it's a recall on it. What is this dated from?
2/6/2018.
2/6/18. When did you buy the car, Mr. Efron?
Actually, Your Honor, that's approximately when I bought the car. I bought the car February of 2018, as it happens, from a dealer. and was never told that at all.
That's interesting.
And I had no problem. 2.5, almost 3 years go by, and had no problem.
Yeah, I know.
And,
Everyone has no problem until the second they have a problem. Then that's the second the problem was born. That's always the case. But, it's very hard for me to say to them that they obviously did something. Look, I find you to be credible. And so does he. Nobody thinks you're a scammer because if you were a scammer, you'd be on it so much better than you've been. You wouldn't have waited a year and a half. You're too busy. You're an attorney with a practice and you're like, you know what? Now I decided I'm mad. No one thinks you're a scammer, but you still have to prove that they did something wrong. Unless they actually did something that you didn't hire them to do. It's very hard with this service bulletin to tell him you guys did something wrong and you got to pay the guy $592, much less $1,282.82. I'm going to send this service bulletin to you to make sure that you have it, and it may still be covered. I don't know. I hope you two end up talking to each other and work something out with repairs and car washes. And I mean, Mr. Paul doesn't have to do that, but he probably wants to look good on television. And would you be willing to do that?
I'm willing to do that without being on television. That's why I sent him an email.
All right. My work is done here. Based on this...
But please, Mr. Efron, come on back and I will give you some free washes and I will set you up with an upholstery guy and we will get your seat taken care of and keep your car clean and you'll be coming back paying me money for many more years. I promise you. We will take care of you.
Oh.
Good business, man.
Let me just hold on to that feeling. Let me hold on to the feeling where litigants aren't screaming at each other. All right, gentlemen, for the reasons I've stated, verdict for the defendant.
Thank you.
Well, what a fascinating case. The defendant prevails because he did his homework and gave the judge some very convincing evidence. Mr. Efron, let me talk to you. How do you feel about the outcome of the case? Are you surprised?
As long as I ultimately get the seat repaired and it doesn't come out of my pocket, if it comes out of the pocket of Subaru of America, that's fine too, as long as I'm not paying for something I didn't do.
Well, look, he's been great about it. Are you going to go back and get car washes from him and let him maybe fix this up for you?
Probably, as long as, we are able to get this taken care of and move on.
Well, good for you. I mean, come on, you're very lucky to have a defendant like that to work with. Greg Paul, let me ask you, good for you. You did a lot of work. That was smart for you, right? You pat yourself on the back.
Thank you. After they approached me to do the show, I started watching episodes. And I binge watched hundreds of episodes. And I was like, I got to start doing some research.
Well, good for you. What a nice guy. What a great guy. And what a smart guy. And keep watching. You'll keep learning, okay?
Doug, I gotta say, this is great work on the defendant's part to do this kind of research. It was deep research, but ultimately it won the case for the defendant because the defect in the car seat and the recall was pretty much all the defendant had to do to blow up the plaintiff's burden of proof.
Marilyn, what's the first thing you do when you wake up?
I look at the clock on the bedstand next to my side of the bed. And I'm grateful that I woke up. That actually does happen in the mornings. I'm like, oh, another day. And then my dog. I go down to my dog.
Well, as you're walking out of the bedroom, the dog is usually asleep on the carpet, the rug right in front of the front door, right?
And what happens as I'm coming down the steps?
You immediately hear this thumping sound of
boom, boom. She's still asleep, but her tail is wagging because she's sensing that I'm coming, and she's banging her tail against the carpet.
Right, and it's loud.
Yeah, that happens when either of us wake up.
She has a happy tail.
Yes, she does.
Yes.
What's the first thing you do?
Well, let's see. When I wake up, I get up off the floor. I try to figure out where I am.
That's not true.
No, I go downstairs, I stumble downstairs, I make some coffee, and you've already been up for an hour, usually.
Right.
And you're in the middle of God knows what project. There's probably stuff all over the place. And
then you say to me, I'm still having my cup of coffee until what time? Till several hours later.
Well, you got to enjoy it, right? So I do that, but who makes you breakfast?
You do, actually. That's become your thing after the kids left the nest.
So I got that going for me.
Yeah.